It's Tuesday, November 8th, a beautiful election day in Connecticut. I'm Kate Czaplinski with the latest local news, bringing you including how things are going at the polls. Josh Fisher joins us later to preview tonight's election coverage. Frank Granito has your Nutmeg Sports update and a look at the forecast. And Donald Eng joins us later to take a look back on this day in history. But first, we are hearing about some lines at some of the polls this morning, like this one around 8:40 in Bethel. But there have also been no serious issues reported so far. We've had some folks at HAN send us some video, including Josh Fisher from Voting District 7 in Stamford. This one from John Kovach in Fairfield. Other voters reporting a quick in and out at the polls and no lines. The Ridgefield Press reported this morning that Yanity Gymnasium, where District 3 voters are casting their ballots today, is tallying votes on a backup tabulator. Democratic Registrar Cindy Bruno told the press that the main machine went down shortly after the polls opened at around 6 a.m. You can follow updates on that at theridgefieldpress.com. Secretary of State Denise Merrill asked that if you see any irregularities today to let them know. The Connecticut hotline is 866-733-2463. You can also email them at elections@ct.gov. Merrill also reported around 8:30 this morning that smaller towns are reporting turnout between 5 and 15% in the early hours. She said other towns were reporting turnout of almost 10% in the first hour alone. She says that's only anecdotal right now, but it's indicative of possibly high statewide turnout. And if you aren't sure where to vote, you can check the state's polling place locator at myvote.ct.gov. And tonight, you can get real-time local election results and analysis here on the HAN network. That starts at 8 o'clock tonight. We'll tell you how your town votes for president, to U.S. Senate, to Congress, to General Assembly, and probate judge. When the polls close at 8, we'll be hosting a Connecticut-focused election night special. Josh Fisher joins us later on Coffee Break to talk a little bit more about that, so be sure to check that out later on. And in other news today in New Canaan, 2 pedestrians were struck by a motor vehicle at the intersection of South Avenue and Harrison Avenue at around 6:21 on Monday, November 7th. Police said this morning that the 2 suffered non-life-threatening injuries, according to Police Lieutenant Jason Ferraro. The names of the injured persons have not been released. Ferraro said that shortly after the incident, Darien police were called to the scene to assist New Canaan's reconstruction team that was investigating that accident. And a weeks-long investigation into a Stamford man's pot dealing business led police last Friday to seize well over 2.5 pounds of marijuana and arrest a Fairfield man. Hearst, Connecticut media reports that the operation began on Saturday afternoon when officers of the Narcotics and Organized Crime Squad decided it was time to exercise their search and seizure warrants against 28-year-old Marquil Bates. After getting intelligence about Bates being involved in selling large quantities of marijuana several weeks ago, police began keeping an eye on him and tracking his movements. On Saturday, just before 5 p.m., officers in the squad saw him leave his home and go to that of his parents on Warren Street. A few minutes after Bates parked his green Dodge Durango, officers watched as a man drove up to the home. Bates then walked over to the car with a large UPS box and handed it through the window. As the Accord was turning out of the driveway, police stopped the vehicle, and when they searched the cardboard box, they found that it contained a kilo, or a little over 2.2 pounds of marijuana. The driver of that car, 20-year-old Eric Marrero of Fairfield, was charged with possession of a kilo of marijuana and possession with intent to sell. And in Stratford, the planned Interstate 95 Exit 33 interchange off of Barnum Avenue may be compromised. Raymark waste was identified in that area. The Connecticut Department of Transportation recently identified previously unknown Raymark waste in the area of that new Exit 33 interchange. That, according to Jim DiLorenzo, a project manager for the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. The waste was identified in 5 soil borings out of nearly 50 done as part of the DOT's geotechnical design work for the interchange. You can get a lot more on that story at StratfordStar.com. And a football coach has resigned after allegedly making an inappropriate comment to his team. Chris Pace, who has led the Trojans football team at Weston High School since 2014, has now resigned as their head coach. Weston Superintendent William S. McCursey issued a memorandum on Monday saying that Pace decided he could no longer remain as head coach. Pace's resignation follows a highly inappropriate comment that he made to his team, that according to the memo. It is expected that Pace will be issuing a formal apology for his conduct. According to McCursey, Pace will remain in Weston as a physical education teacher, and the district will provide him with appropriate training and supervision. You can get more on that story by Rocco Veluzzo at thewestonforum.com. But let's switch gears now and throw it over to Frank Granito for a look at the forecast. Frank, it's a beautiful day.
Perfect day to get out there and vote today, Kate. Warmer with temperatures up into the mid-60s now. Mostly sunny throughout the day. And then a mild afternoon with humidity on the rise and possibly reaching 70% by this evening. Mostly cloudy and warm overnight, an expected low of 50 degrees. And we'll continue to see more clouds move in before Wednesday morning. Tomorrow morning will be mostly cloudy, and there's a chance of a shower before noon, an expected high of 58, and there will be passing showers moving through the county tomorrow afternoon. We should see skies start to clear up overnight, though, and make way for sunshine on Thursday. Partly cloudy skies earlier in the day, and occasional wind gusts reaching 15 miles per hour Thursday, but a high of 65 during the day, a low of 43 overnight. Clear skies by the late afternoon should hang around and make way for a beautiful start to this weekend. That's going to do it for this weather update. Let's send it back over to Kate.
All right, thanks so much, Frank. We are going to step out for a break, and when we come back, Donald Eng takes a look back on this day in history. Frank has an Nutmeg Sports update, and we have some more local news after this. Have a sports injury or a slip and fall that needs immediate care? Coastal Ortho Express Urgent Care gives you direct access to an orthopedic specialist fast, without an appointment. Biking, golf, tennis, soccer, whatever the sports injury is, sprain or fracture, Coastal Ortho Express can help. Coastal Ortho Express Urgent Care, open Monday through Saturday, now in 2 locations. The iPark building at 761 Main Avenue in Norwalk and 36 Old Kings Highway South in Darien. Or go to coastalorthoexpress.com, like them on Facebook.
Hi, this is Leo Carl from Carl Chevrolet in New Canaan. And you've heard me talk about the Chevy Volt for years. The new model gets 53 miles on EV charge daily, plus 420-mile full range. But don't take my word for it. You need to come in and test drive the Volt yourself. Visit us at 261 Elm Street in New Canaan or online at carldirect.com.
As you're getting back to your regular schedules, we're excited to get back to doing what we do best, offering you the freshest seasonal fare and all the ingredients for a healthy start to school. So shop Walter Stewart's for everything fresh, from A, apples to Z, zucchini, and from cotton candy grapes to back to nature all-natural snack bags. We save you time by stocking all of your favorite back-to-school essentials under one roof. Walter Stewart's Market, 229 Elm Street, or shop online at stewartsmarket.com. At Whip Blow Dry Bar in the Salon of Ridgefield, it's all about creating a hassle-free, high-end experience for the entire family. Open 7 days a week, the makeup and hairstyle salon on Governor Street has it all. From color services, men's haircuts with a complimentary microbrew, affordable kids cuts, and more. And our blowout package includes a shampoo, scalp massage, blowout of your choice, and a lipstick application done by a celebrity makeup artist. Download the Whip Salon app to view the styles and book appointments. Get more information at whipsalon.com, 203-442-6444, or find Whip on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
On time, done right, safe and reliable. MrHandymanCT.com.
Let our satisfied customers tell it.
I have called Mr. Handyman for every reason, every occasion, every broken item, every leak. They have bailed me out on many occasions, and I would recommend them to anyone.
For any project, large or small.
MrHandymanCT.com.
On Election Day in Connecticut, the HAN network has you covered with real-time results and analysis.
Will your town vote for Trump or for Clinton?
And who will be representing you in Hartford and in Washington, D.C.? HAN's news reporters and editors will be out in the field talking to the candidates, collecting results, and we'll be breaking it all down on air with live local analysis you won't find anywhere else.
Watch Connecticut Election Night 2016 live
November 8th at 8 p.m. on HAN.network and Frontier Communications channels 600 and 1600.
We're back on this November 8th edition of your Coffee Break on the HAN Network. I'm Kate Czaplinski, and it's time to throw it over to Donald Eng to take a look back on this day in history. Don, a little break from all the election news, maybe?
Well, possibly, yeah. Well, starting in 1960, we go. John F. Kennedy beats Richard Nixon in one of the closest presidential races of the 20th century to become the 35th president of the United States. Kennedy, at 43 years old, was the youngest ever elected president, remains the only Catholic president and the only president ever to have won a Pulitzer Prize. 1966, another president, this one Lyndon Johnson, signs the antitrust exemption allowing the National Football League to merge with the American Football League. Under the terms of the deal, the two leagues would play separate schedules until the 1970 season, and all AFL teams would be allowed to join the NFL. 1972, HBO launches its programming with the broadcast of the 1971 movie, Sometimes a Great Notion, starring Paul Newman and Henry Fonda. HBO is the oldest and longest continually operating pay television service in the United States, with annual revenues of nearly $2 billion. Finally, now we go to 1895 for this.
Röntgen spent the next several weeks working feverishly in his laboratory to investigate as many properties of this energy as he could. He noticed that when he placed his hand between the energized tube and the barium platinum cyanide coated paper, he could see the bones of his hand glowing on the paper, with this fluoroscopic image moving as he moved his hand. Curious about this, he called to his wife Bertha and said, "Let me show you what I'm doing, because no one is going to believe this." Then he placed his wife's hand under the tube and produced a static image of her hand using a 15-minute exposure. Upon seeing the image of the bones in her hand, she is reputed to have said, "I have seen my own death."
That's 1895. While experimenting with electricity, Wilhelm Röntgen discovers the X-ray. Now, although the uses of X-rays were immediately obvious, they were quite slow to figure out the potential harms of them. As late as the 1950s, shoe stores still used freestanding X-ray machines to give customers a view of the bones in their feet. Many early X-ray researchers, including Nikola Tesla, Elihu Thomson, that's Edison's top assistant, and Röntgen himself, developed blistering burns and in some cases cancer from their research into X-rays. That is your look back in history for today, November 8th, and I'm Donald Eng.
All right, thanks so much, Don. Well, in other news today, the Stanford Advocate reports that a Bridgeport man has been accused of taking an Uber car to deliver more than 17 ounces of cocaine over the weekend near North Stamford. Captain Richard Conklin said the Narcotics and Organized Crime Squad was alerted that a man, later identified as Orlando Rodriguez, would be making a large-scale cocaine delivery Saturday night just below the Merritt Parkway. Officers went to Square Acre Drive and spotted an Uber car at about 11 at night. The officers stopped the car and found 2 large bags of cocaine weighing 500 grams, which is half a kilo. Rodriguez, 19 years old, of Madison Avenue in Bridgeport, was charged with possession of narcotics and possession of over an ounce of narcotics with intent to sell. But let's throw it back over to Frank Granito for a Nutmeg Sports Update. Frank.
Thank you, Kate. The CIAC state tournaments got underway yesterday, and let's start with round 1 from volleyball. Looking at some of the FCIAC teams, Fairfield Ward knocked off Hall by a score of 3-0. They will move on and play against number 1 Greenwich now in the second round. Wilton fell at the hands of Glastonbury. Ridgefield, who had a bye, will play against Hamden. McMahon also earned a bye, and they will play E.O. Smith. Danbury defeated NFA and now gets ready to play number 2 Amity. Staples beat Simsbury 3-1, and they draw the FCIAC champion Stanford Black Knights. And finally, Trumbull shut out Darien 3-0. They will travel to number 6 Cheshire. For the field hockey state tournament, we had play-in games yesterday. 3 FCIAC teams were featured. Ward shut out Hall 3-0. Simsbury held off Trumbull 2-1, and New Milford blanked the Ridgefield Tigers by a score of 3-0. Of course, there was some controversy surrounding the CIAC tournament yesterday. The girls' Double L tournament, which was set to begin Wednesday afternoon, games had to be postponed due to a seating issue within the state. That is, Suffield, who was 16-0 and supposed to be in Class Double L, had been replaced into L. The mistake was not noticed until yesterday morning, and now the tournament had to be entirely reseeded. Games for the first round are set to be played tomorrow afternoon. But we'll have plenty more on that story, as well as the other state tournaments, and a wrap-up from football this past weekend coming up on Nutmeg Sports at 2 o'clock. That'll do it for this Nutmeg Sports Update. Let's go back over to Kate.
Thanks so much, Frank. In other news today, the Reading Board of Education passed a motion in executive session last Tuesday stating that Region 9 Director of Finance and Operations, Peggy Sullivan, violated board policy when she transferred surplus funds from the 2015-16 fiscal year into the school's health insurance claim fund for 2016-2017. According to Board of Education policies, such a transfer requires a written prior approval from the Board of Education or in an emergency situation, post facto approval at the board's next meeting. To formally address the violation, the board moved to direct Superintendent Dr. Tom McMorrin to draft a disciplinary letter and fully executed agreement specifying the policy violated and all actions which led to that violation. They're also requiring that Sullivan should assure the board in writing that the policy previously stated will not be violated at any time in the future. You can get more on that story at thereadingpilot.com. And the Darien Board of Selectmen took the first steps toward purchasing a 16.25-acre parcel of land from the Ox Ridge Hunt Club with a unanimous vote on Monday night. The land comes with a purchasing price of $6.25 million and represents about 2/3 of the club's space. Officials described the purchase as mutually beneficial to both the town and the Hunt Club. Acquiring open space is a priority in Darien's town plan of conservation and development, and the club will gain some necessary capital to continue its legacy of more than 100 years. In 2012, the club and the town agreed upon a 30-year open space restriction to protect the club's field space, and that agreement would remain intact should the town purchase the discussed portion. More on that story at DarienTimes.com. And Bobby Valentine, former manager of the New York Mets and the Boston Red Sox, will speak to the Wilton Kiwanis Club at their regular weekly luncheon. That's Wednesday, November 9th, tomorrow at 48 New Canaan Road. Lunch will be served at 12:15, and Valentine will begin his talk at 1 for about half an hour. Non-members are invited at a cost of $15 per person, but reservations are a must, and you can make those by calling 203-354-0208. We are going to step out for a break, and when we come back, we're going to recap some of the top stories we're following. Josh Fisher also joins us to preview tonight's live election coverage on the HAN network. That's coming up after this.
This is now 44 years I've been in this business. Digital came along. After I was in business for about 6 years, I had to totally reinvent the business. So I had to make a tremendous investment in my business. And Milford Bank was there for me. I don't really just consider Milford Bank a bank. I consider them a trusted partner in my business. My name is Jim Wilson, owner of Milford Photo. I choose to bank with Milford Bank.
Want to reach new heights in your fitness and health goals? Find what you're looking for at Elevation Spin, Train, and TRX in Georgetown, Connecticut. Elevation Spin gives you purposeful spinning workouts inspired by the road. We encourage monitoring of heart rate and energy zones. Elevation also offers customized personal training with dedicated professionals passionate about helping you reach your goals. And let us motivate you to reach greater performance and functionality with TRX suspension training, using your own body weight for an incredible dynamic workout. Located at 4 Old Mill Road in Georgetown, call Elevation at 203-544-9503 or visit elevationspintraintrx.com for more.
The leaves are changing, water temps dropping, and the sun is setting a little earlier each day. But there's still a lot of great boating, fishing, and coast time left before we see the first snow. And above all, remember, it's always summer at the Dock Shop. With loads of new fishing tackle and accessories, clothing, jewelry, and home decor, the Dock Shop is just what you need when you start to feel that New England autumn chill. Boater, beach bum, fisherman, or simply love the New England coast, this is a unique place to shop. The Dock Shop, 51 Tokenique Road, Darien, 609 Riverside Avenue, Westport, dockshop.com.
This fall, explore the beautiful landscape enhanced by the architectural design and art at the Philip Johnson Glass House in New Canaan. Open for the season now through November 30th, the Glass House is a National Trust historic site that sits on 49 acres of pastoral landscape, comprised of 14 total structures, and a permanent collection of 20th century painting and sculpture, as well as temporary exhibitions. Tours are available on Sunday, Monday, and Thursdays through Saturdays. Advance reservations are recommended. Visit theglasshouse.org for more information and to get your tickets.
I'm Frank Granito.
And I'm Donald Ing for the HAN Network.
Tune in to Nutmeg Sports Monday through Thursday, where we bring you all the top stories from Connecticut sports.
From highlights to player interviews and expert analysis, no one gets you closer to Connecticut's games than Nutmeg Sports.
Nutmeg Sports, now Monday through Thursday at 2 p.m. on the HAN Network.
We're back on this Tuesday, November 8th edition of your coffee break on the HAN Network. It's Election Day in Connecticut, and voters are reporting some lines at the polls in towns like Bethel, Stamford, and Fairfield. Other voters are saying it's a quick in and out, so we're kind of hearing people talking about different outlooks depending on where they are. No major issues have been reported so far, though the Ridgefield Press reports that Yanity Gymnasium, where District 3 voters are casting their ballots today, is tallying votes there on a backup tabulator. According to the Democratic Registrar Cindy Bruno, the main machine went down shortly after the polls opened at 6 a.m. Secretary of State Denise Merrill asked that if anyone sees irregularities today, that they let them know. You can call the Connecticut hotline at 866-733-2463 or send an email to elections@ct.gov. Merrill also reported earlier this morning around 8:30 that smaller towns are seeing a turnout between 5 to 15%, and some towns are reporting turnout of almost 10% in the first hour alone. She said that's only anecdotal right now, but also indicative of possibly higher statewide turnout. If you aren't sure of where you're voting today, you can check the state polling place locator at myvote.ct.gov. And a little bit later on, we're going to tell you about what the HAN Network's going to be doing for election night tonight. But in other news, in New Canaan, 2 pedestrians were struck by a motor vehicle at the intersection of South Avenue and Harrison Avenue last night around 6:20 in the evening. Police said this morning that the 2 suffered non-life-threatening injuries. The names of the injured persons have not been released, but police said that shortly after that incident, Darien police were called to the scene to assist New Canaan Police's reconstruction team that are still investigating that accident. And in Stratford, the planned Interstate 95 Exit 33 interchange off of Barnum Avenue may be compromised as Raymark waste was identified in that area. The Connecticut Department of Transportation recently identified previously unknown Raymark waste in the area of that Exit 33 interchange. That, according to Jim DiLorenzo, a project manager for the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. The waste was identified in 5 soil borings out of nearly 50 done as part of the DOT's geotechnical design work for that interchange. But you can get a lot more information on that story at StratfordStar.com. And a football coach has resigned after allegedly making an inappropriate comment to his team. Chris Pace, who has led the Trojans football team at Weston High School since 2014, has resigned as their head coach. Weston Superintendent William McCursey issued a memorandum on Monday saying that Pace decided he could no longer remain as head coach. Pace's resignation follows a highly inappropriate comment, according to the memo. It's expected that Pace will be issuing a formal apology for his conduct. According to McCursey, Pace will remain in Weston as a physical education teacher, and the district will provide him with training and supervision. But let's welcome Josh Fisher. We're getting ready for election night tonight, Josh. We're really excited. We're going to have live coverage on the HAN Network and streaming on Vantage Sports Network, channels 600 and 1600.
Yeah, it's exciting, Kate. And I think that a lot of the state and, of course, across the nation, there's this sense of excitement and relief that this long national nightmare of a campaign is nearly over.
Yes.
Most of us hope
yes.
by the end of the night.
We'll Fingers crossed, right?
But of course, what we're going to be focusing on mainly is something that a lot of people, I think even ourselves included, have not spent a lot of time focusing on, and that is the local races, because the fate of the Connecticut State House and the State Senate hangs in the balance tonight. The Republicans have slowly been chipping away at that supermajority that the Democrats had years ago. They need to pick up 12 seats in the House tonight, or 4 seats in the Senate to gain control in either one of those houses. So we're going to have, we'll have certainly reporters at also for the congressional races. We're going to have someone at Jim Himes' headquarters in Stamford, and then also with John Shaban in Reading tonight, providing live reports. And you and I will also be feeding information from all over.
Yes.
And you can also, if you haven't yet, download our app. Just search HAN Network on the iTunes Store or on the Android store, and you can watch our coverage. A little ticker that will update every single race.
Right, because we will be focusing on areas of southwestern Connecticut, but we're going to be keeping an eye on all the statewide races. And of course, even Judge of Probate race in Ridgefield and Newtown Bethel, that's a big race that we're going to be following there. So it's going to be a good time.
And there's, of course, the charter hangs in the balance in New Canaan.
Right.
A lot of charter questions. We'll provide updates with that. And so, yeah, we're going to be using all our resources from our various news websites and newspapers across southwestern Connecticut. And then, of course, some other reporting. And don't worry, we'll still keep you updated too on what's going on with the national races. We'll have a little note up in the upper left-hand corner, keep you track of how the electoral votes are going. And we hope to have Connecticut completely wrapped up by 10. So that we can finish and we can watch and see how the final states come in out in the West Coast and see who our next president's going to be.
Now, Josh, I know you've been doing your research too, and you mentioned that this presidential election is kind of a Northeast focus tonight.
It is. This is the first time since 1944 that both candidates will be in New York City, the two major candidates on election night. Of course, if you've been listening to any of the news in the tri-state area, a lot of security in Midtown Manhattan tonight. The Clinton campaign is going to be at the Jacob Javits Center, and Trump's going to be at, I think, the Hilton, right next to Grand Central. So keep that in mind, too. If you're commuting home or going into the city later tonight, it's going to be a little crowded. So the best thing to do is also, if you're commuting, you could, download that app and watch our coverage live on your phone or wherever you are. At least keep that open while you maybe have your network of choice up on the television. But if you have Vantage or if you have Frontier, it's going to be fun. This is our news debut. We've been doing a lot of sports that's been appearing on Frontier, but this will be the first time we have a news program on there. So we're excited.
And I think it's appropriate because, politics is a sport.
Yes.
It definitely is. So that'll be on Vantage Sports Network, channels 600, 1600, and live, of course, at HAN.network. Josh, we're really looking forward to it. And I think a lot of us are interested to see how our towns vote for president. So we'll find out.
Yes, it's going to be fun to see if you live in a Hillary town or a Trump town.
All right, well, check us out live at 8 o'clock. That starts. We'll see you then. We're going to wrap things up here on your coffee break, Josh, and we're going to keep doing our research, keep preparing for tonight's broadcast. So check it out live at 8. We'll see you then.